Hello, where we are listeners. If you're a longtime fan of this podcast or you're just joining us for the first time today, we want to tell you more about our podcast platform called Spotify for Podcasters. We've been using this platform for over a year, and it's been easy to use, and new features are added all the time. You can record and edit podcasts from your phone or computer. You don't need anything fancy, and you don't need previous podcast experience. When you hit publish, you will distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify if that's your kind of thing. And with Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. But here's the thing, you can earn money, but it's a free platform. There's no catch. If you're curious or want to see what it's all about, download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
All right, dear. What'll you have to drink?
I'm drinking water with little chunks of pineapple.
This is Where is the Love? I'm Michael Ware.
I'm Alyssa Ware.
And we're glad to be with you. We're recording this late on a Saturday night.
Don't tell them that. That makes us sound just beyond uncool.
I mean, I think they know. I mean, we have a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm
feel
drinking
like
wine.
Oh, yeah. I'm drinking pineapple chunks. Like, for some reason that got to him. I thought that was it's like infused water, the fancy stuff that people like walk around like going to the gym with.
Yeah, well, see, if you said like with
Infused
water
with
infused with
pineapple
Oda
bits.
pineapple. Yeah. Then they would see.
Pineapple
you can't
bits.
use bits. You can't use chunks. That makes it sound very unappetizing. Slices. They're slices. I slice them for you.
Yeah, they're chunks.
I am drinking wine that is
It's such a beautiful color.
It's a beautiful color. We bought it at a local wine store, but it is directly from vineyards that surround a lake that we were able to visit when we went to Italy for our 10th anniversary.
Yeah, in July.
July.
Caldero.
Lake Caldero. And this is a very special lake. Melissa has a number of fears that I've known about since we were teenagers. One of them is of dark water.
Visceral. You can't even show me pictures because I start to get physically ill.
Yes. And so, you will not often find Melissa out on boats. She will not swim in, definitely like in an ocean. It's been a rare opportunity that I've gotten her like on a beach. And then pools, she's just also not a fan. But we were in Italy. It was very stunningly beautiful.
So beautiful.
And I got Melissa on like a €3 per half hour paddle boat. Mm-hmm. And you enjoyed it.
I honestly did, because the setting was so beyond stunning, and it was a gorgeous breezy day, sunny, clear skies, and Lake Caldero is pretty much in a valley in the Alto Adige region of Italy, which is very northwest, so very near, pretty much right in the Alps. It's the Italian Dolomites, and I was wearing this beautiful sundress. We had just come from tasting wine, and so I thought, well, I'll do this for Michael because This is a very special place, clearly, and if I don't get on this paddle boat, I will have taken away an experience from him, so I'll do this. And then I ended up really enjoying it because I basically turned off about 75% of my brain that was screaming at me.
And we FaceTimed the goo when...
We FaceTimed Saoirse and Ilaria. We FaceTimed the goo bears. And... Saoirse was just so excited that we were on a boat. So excited that she loves water. She loves boats. She loves anything outdoors, just like Michael. I prefer being inside at all times.
So I'm drinking this wine. It makes me feel like I'm back there. It tastes like
yes, it does.
Like
every single Alta DJ wine tastes like it's from there.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Really beautiful. I realized after we recorded our last episode that I didn't mention what I was drinking, and I was drinking last episode a little glass of Nocino liquor from Padroni, which is a balsamic vinegar maker in Modena, and that we got in Modena a trip years ago. And we brought back 2 bottles, and I drink it very sparingly. It's delicious.
You finished that bottle.
Just about. It's almost gone, and then we have one more.
Oh, that's right. We do have one more. Okay. Not all is lost.
Yeah.
It's walnut liquor. It's so good.
So we talked about that. You promised that before we got into the meat of our conversation, you were going to talk to me about girdle.
Wordle!
Wordle.
We're suddenly in the 1950s, and I'm just like your great
So what
aunt.
is it? What's
a girdle?
A girdle. What's Wordle?
Okay, Wordle. Yes. Okay, so I was seeing all the little green, gray, and black boxes on random tweets over the last week, and it would come with a 2 out of 6 or a 1 out of 6 or a 3 out of 6 and I can't believe I did well this time. And I was like, okay, what is this? So I went and looked it up today. And Wordle is this new, basically a daily word game. So it's only 1 word a day that is released on this website. It was created by this guy called Josh Wardle, who's this software engineer. And people have been going wild for it. And so that's why it's showing up all over Twitter. It's become so popular. It was released in October 2021, but only over the last few weeks has it become the thing to do. And so I did it, and I forget what today's word was, and I solved it on the 6th try or whatever. But now I get why people have been posting it because, it's pretty simple. It's not groundbreaking in terms of the game itself, but the funny thing is that when I was doing it, and then after I finished it and I thought about it, I was like, this is the speakeasy of online games, because what it does is it creates an aura of oh, you're in the know.
Okay.
Oh, you're on the up and up.
Got it.
You know the hot new thing.
That's
exciting. Because
it
it doesn't actually reveal what the heck Wordle is until you actually go and play the game, and you see it's actually something really stupid and again, not groundbreaking. There's a ton of word scramble games just like this with process of elimination, but it makes people feel there's
a nice little buzz around
there's a buzz around it, and there's mysteriousness around it. And guess what? I found out. I found a Mashable article on Wordle, and this Josh Wardle, this software engineer, he has a reputation as a crafter of interesting social experiments. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is just a social experiment of his.
I like it.
Creating this kind of mysteriousness where people post on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram oh, and then you have to say, well, I need to know what it is. And then, games like this tend to be addicting in the first place, but I think that's why it's gone so viral, is because it's not only an addicting game, which that one duck game or something like that, a couple years ago. Remember, they had to take the game offline,
right?
Because
you were mentioning
because
this,
it was causing addiction, and the creators felt bad about causing so much chaos and addiction. I think it's combining that kind of thing with a mysteriousness, a sort of virality, a man-made virality, which virality is always man-made, but purposefully viral, almost as if a marketer came up with this.
Yeah. Okay, this makes sense to me. I'm not
it's weird.
I'm not immediately like personally intrigued, but I feel like I get why it's a thing and it has a moment.
We can do tomorrow's word together, and I can show you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be interested to see. I bet you I'll get super into it like 3 years from now when no one else cares.
Yes, just like how you're super into Pokemon Go.
Whoa! Whoa! I thought there were limits in this podcast. Here. I'm just building up the collection so my children might inherit it. But
okay.
Yeah.
You're telling me I can't use the word chunks. I'm telling everybody about, I'm telling everybody about Pokemon Go.
Okay, you can have your chunks if we could delete the Pokemon Go reference.
No, we're not going to edit it out.
All right. Yeah, we don't.
We don't. This is a very low rent podcast.
That's right.
We are editing this ourselves.
Yeah, no, this is straight from us to you. And
yes.
So, all right, so those are kind of the preliminaries. The main thing we wanted to discuss, and what we're going to try to do, and we'll try to do this moving forward, is we're looking to sync up the podcast with our top 5. So the idea is when the top 5 for the Reclaiming Hope newsletter that you can sign up for at reclaiminghope.substack.com, when the top 5 drops in people's inboxes, as a part of that email will be a link to the new podcast. We want to be careful about how often we're emailing, and so we figured that was the best way. So new episodes will go out with the top 5, which usually goes out on Sundays. And the top 5 are usually longer reads.
Yes.
Usually not. Sometimes if they think big about a very current event, we'll include it.
Yes.
But usually they're further looking out. They're more about sort of trends rather than
ideas.
Things
that might be coming down the line.
Yeah. And so that's what we're going to do. So we'll talk about 1 or 2 of the articles that will be in that week's top 5. That way you have a little sort of audio.
A little treat.
A little audio accompaniment to the top 5.
Audio candy.
Audio candy. Now, one of the articles that will be in the top 5 was an article I thought was really interesting that is specifically about a particular policy, but I think opens up conversation to talk about public policy and public opinion generally.
Yes.
This is New York Times article by Ian Philbrick, was published on January 5th for the Upshot, which is a vertical under the Times. And the headline is, "Why isn't Biden's expanded child tax credit more popular?" Let me read just a bit from the article. This is just the first couple of paragraphs or so. "A significant piece of President Biden's domestic agenda has come to an end. The monthly expansion of the existing child tax credit expired last month after Congress failed to extend it. Since July, the federal government has sent the families of 61 million children monthly payments of $300 per child under 6 and $250 per older child. Democrats' roughly $2 trillion Build Back Better spending bill, which would have renewed the expanded credit, hasn't cleared Congress, may never. When the policy first passed in March, many experts hailed its potential to cut child poverty and hunger, and many Democrats hoped regular cash in families' pockets would prove wildly popular. But the public's appraisal has been less glowing. While polls about last year's expanded credit found it to be popular on net, most showed it with approval in the 50s, it lagged the popularity of lowering costs for prescription drugs, expanding Medicare, and other policies Democrats are seeking to pass. As the party continues to debate whether and how to resurrect the expanded credit, polls generally suggest that Americans have reservations about making it a more lasting fixture of the social safety net. And so, article goes on to quote several folks, including our friend, the sociologist out of UVA, Brad Wilcox, who's long been a conservative proponent for pro-family policies. Melissa, we'll go through some of the reasons the article mentions here. I want to talk about the child tax credit specifically. Also just want to talk about why policies that attempt to address a problem that the American people say they want addressed sometimes don't garner the kind of public opinion, public approval that you'd expect. But let's talk about the child tax credit first. Have you been surprised by the reception, the tax? Did you think it would be more popular? Is this about what you expected? And what's your general position? Are you glad that we had the child tax credit? Did you wish it was renewed? Kind of what's your basic take on the Biden tax credit?
I'm absolutely glad that we had it. I really think it should have been renewed. Those questions are easy for me to answer. I think childhood poverty is just an absolute abomination, and so any sort of way that we can start chipping away at it, and if it's a 50% chip with, the CTC, then great. I'm for it. It should be expanded. The sort of approvals being in the 50s, though, I can see why a lot of strategists are confounded.
Yeah, and so the article offers a few reasons for why reception of the child tax credit may not be as high as some expected. First is this idea that it was casualty of the pandemic, that it was initially passed as part of a $1.9 trillion pandemic relief bill that also included support that went out to far fewer people, but was more significant in the PPP. Mm-hmm. And families are getting hit from all sides now. So $250 per kid, or $300 if they're under 6.
Yeah.
Obviously is helpful, depending on. Especially helpful depending on what your family income is, but may not be as noticed, or may be seen more as an offset of other sacrifices that families are making than, giving people a leg up. And so the idea that it's sort of lost in the pandemic, I think is interesting. And because it passes part of like the response to the pandemic, I think it does set it up as an offset, as a like, wow, we're going through a really hard time. Here's a little something to help you out, as opposed to this is a new American commitment to families, which is a good thing since they haven't been able to extend it yet.
Sure.
I mean that somewhat facetiously. I wish that we were able to make that sort of long-standing commitment to American families, but at this point, if that's what we had done, we haven't been able to keep that commitment. Another reason the article lays out is the sort of who is it helping question. And so like the most obvious way that this cuts is it only helps families with kids. So if you do not have kids, if your kids are adults now, this doesn't support you. And so several public policy experts and analysts point out that that may be limiting the level of support. That if it's not directly helping you or people like you, then you might think there are better things the government could be doing, like supporting people like me. So that's an interesting idea that's worth digging into. And then finally, the article goes into this idea of who is deserving. So this sort of pulls into this was Manchin's pushback on extending the credit as it is, which is there are people who want to means test the tax credit more significantly, put in work requirements, and so the article suggests that people think that it's too expensive, that it goes to people who don't deserve it, that it's wasteful, and that's interesting idea. There is this concern in focus groups that were run by Brad Wilcox's think tank that suggested that some who received the credit, people were concerned that some who received the credit might spend it on vacations or have more children to maximize its value or become dependent on government support. That's a direct quote from this article. And so those are reasons, I guess. I mean, those reasons are worth, just to be clear, we're stating these reasons not because we think that they should hold up, that they're good reasons to oppose the tax credit, but these are reasons for why the public opinion, why public approval might not be as high as some would think. I'll just add one piece that wasn't really zeroed in on here, which is it's the Biden child tax credit in an era of sky-high polarization. And so, I think that if you look at that from that perspective, for the policy to be in the 50s for support is actually pretty good. There aren't many policies, major crowning achievement policies. If Biden runs again, he's going to run on this tax credit. Yes. It's been one of the main things the administration has trumpeted, and for it to have support in the over 50%, I don't know how much more we can expect from modern policies. So what do you think? Do these reasons hold up to you? Do you think any of those reasons are actually good reasons for not approving of the tax credit, or do you think that that these reasons, as as real as they might be for voters, they shouldn't hold up, that these reasons aren't sufficient for opposing the tax credit?
Yeah, I would say that the very first reason provided in the article, which is around the pandemic, the apathy, the sort of chaos that everybody's living in, I think that's a completely reasonable, rational explanation for part of what's going on as to why the percent, the approval might not be maybe more in the 60s or 70s potentially. The other reasons provided, of course, I can see exactly why that there are perceptions around how exactly is everybody else using this money, where is it going towards, who actually deserves it, are people working, are they going to become dependent on this? These are all 30, 40-year-old type attitudes, I would say, that have been around for a very long time, very stereotypical. It happens a lot.
And they're questions that we don't ask about much other government spending.
That's exactly where I was just about to get to. There's so much else that we don't have the exact same type of litmus tests. And it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm sick and tired of it, to be frank with you and with all of you.
We're talking about a $250 a month or $300 for kids under 6 for families.
Yes.
And the concern is like they're going to Bermuda or like they're going on.
Again, it's because the messaging around this has been so locktight and just year in, year out, used again and again and again, that it's just so baked into the American psyche and into American ideology that it's just very natural. It's almost like there's another actually really good example of this, where it was baked in, I forget the history of it, but around foreign aid and people's attitudes towards foreign aid, American attitudes.
Yeah.
Where if you ask any American, they think like 25% of GDP is being spent on foreign aid, when actually it tends to be less than. I think it's less than 2%.
Yeah.
So an extremely tiny part of our GDP goes towards actual foreign aid spending, and it's because there was messaging created around it, however many decades ago, and that has kept up. And so now it's sort of like, it's just sort of
baked in.
It's baked in. It's
respond.
A staple.
Yeah.
It's a staple in our thinking. And so, I mean, this is just all this is as well. Especially because, I'm sure if you actually this doesn't mention polling, but, I'm about to, in terms of with, like these focus groups, like I'd actually want to actually go look at these focus groups and look at the questions here, because this article can't possibly list every single one of them, but asking questions around like, how many people do you think have benefited from this? And, where do you think the money has gone to? Like, it would be just really interesting to sort of like see this part of like the sort of like explanation around like why the approval rating might not be as high. I'd like to see like some deeper info, and I'm sure it probably does exist in these focus groups.
I mean, right, the perennial, people do not want to see other people receiving government support and potentially being able to do things with that government support that they themselves cannot do.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And so, it's like this is it's
the same thing around like parental leave. People say, "I don't want parental leave because I'm not having kids."
So now you're getting into, I think, the adjacent issue, which is not so much like the welfare queen kind of stuff, but this question of what's so good about families, anyways.
Yes,
which. That is something like, and we've actually, this has been the one thing that we've talked about in every episode of the podcast so far. Would like to note that we have had these views for a very long time before we had kids. This isn't like but no, that's exactly it, which is why should families with kids get support? They chose to have kids. Why should a choice be subsidized by the federal
I'm never going to get that kind of leave.
Government? And then it goes to, so that's a child tax credit, but you're right, it's affecting a whole broader array of family policies, which goes to like the other piece of this, which is, so that's a child tax credit. But this article raises, I think, a broader question, which often comes up in our politics, which is, we have a poll that says the American people want to do this. Democrats or Republicans have a proposal to do that. Mm-hmm. Therefore, Congress must act to move this forward. Or, like, there's a suggestion that there's something undemocratic or anti-democratic happening, and sometimes you could make that argument. You could make the argument: look, the American people, 80% support this. There's a really straightforward bill that will do that in a reasonable way. It hasn't happened. And you could talk about money in politics. You could talk about your problems with how Congress works, all of that.
Yeah.
I think so often, though,
it's not that clean.
It's not that clean, and it actually is a bit of a manipulation.
Absolutely.
It actually is like a bit of a cover for the fact that the American people may not support addressing the problem in the way you propose to address it. Or the American people may support doing something in the abstract, but only if their other priorities are covered first or at the same time.
Right.
So it's like very easy to say, yes, I support more funding going to this. But like the way that actually plays out, how the American people view the repercussions or the consequences of increased funding in an area, like that plays into all this. So I do think there's a bit of that happening with child tax credit, which is we've had months of conversation about inflation, and this is a really significant program. So I would have, there's not, I don't know if it's mentioned directly.
It's not, because it's really
in the article.
It
I think overspending, I think like government spending is covered, but inflation specifically isn't covered, even though that specifically is something Manchin has raised.
It is, and the whole like, well, people are tired from the pandemic, and the pandemic is just like, you know, screwing with everything. Well, yeah, because I mean, people are also seeing their grocery prices rise and gas prices rise, you can't buy a house if you were in the market for buying a house, like that kind of thing. So it's, besides polarization, inflation is definitely missing from this New York Times article. It's a very good explanation that I think couples with the pandemic explanation.
And you know, like I think it's one of the things that actually promotes a level of cynicism when politicians trot out, you know, 80% support addressing this issue. My bill addresses it. Therefore, everyone who opposes my bill opposes the American people. Like, that's a recipe for making sure that a significant number of Americans feel unheard. Like the Americans who do want to address an issue but just don't like the way you're addressing it, but you're claiming to speak for them. It's also like, it's a manipulation. It's manipulation of your colleagues in Congress. It's manipulation of the American people and of the debate. And one encouragement or warning I'd offer is that this often plays out among just like regular people. So you don't support this legislation, so you must oppose children. Right, like you must oppose, like, so I support the child tax credit, but for those who oppose it, for instance, and so this is the thing, I think so many people who support the child tax credit will do so because they say it's a major, it's really really cut child poverty. Yep. But one of the critiques of the Biden tax credit is that basically it's pretty difficult for the poorest of the poor to get it, because the way the money is administered is through IRS, through tax filings. And so if you don't pay taxes because you don't make enough income, then the government actually has a hard time identifying you, getting the money out to you. Well, and so what happens is, if you're someone who says, I didn't support the tax credit because I didn't think that the money was going to get to the people who needed it most, and I thought that there should have been, it should have been administered differently. But all people hear is, I didn't support the tax credit. And people attack you. Oh, you must, you don't want to do anything about poverty. Well, that person who opposes it is not doing it because they don't want to do anything about poverty. It's because they want to do more. And so, of course, we could then have all kinds of debates about taking half a loaf and pragmatism and all that. But it's just like a reminder to, like, once these issues move from the abstract, from the value to the policy instrument, we want to be really careful about, like, casting aspersions, making judgments about the values of people just because they might not support the current vehicle that's sort of in play to address that issue. Yeah.
No, that's right. I completely agree.
Yeah. All right. That's what that was the point I came in wanting to make. I hope I made it. Hope you'll read the article in the top 5. Would love to hear your thoughts about that article and the other top 5. What do you have to say?
I do have one question for you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's see if we can answer it quickly, because I know that we're probably already talking a lot here. Do you think that it would ever be a good idea, especially with Build Back Better, if it's only... I mean, they say they're going to vote on it by the 7th. Well, Senator Schumer says they're going to vote on it by the 17th. Obviously, Senator Manchin has his issues. He's proposed his own, I think, 1.8. Apparently, he's not meeting with the White House now. I just saw that headline today. So let's say this is sort of tanked. Would child tax credit, would any of these provisions work on their own?
Yes,
if they were taking out of the child tax credit, any of the others? Do you think that they should be, in principle? Do you think that we should sort of be plucking some of these things out so that they can at least get passed?
It's a great question. So I don't think it would happen.
Me neither, but yeah.
But I think Romney is worth engaging.
I do too.
Not extending the tax credit.
I also think his plan is actually pretty good.
His plan is really good. In some ways, it's a lot smarter than what we currently.
Yep.
But so this is just like and maybe I'll be proven wrong on this. I hope I am. But it is. It would be very hard for Democrats, after passing their own tax credit, to admit, to admit that they need Republican support, B, to share credit for doing it with Republicans. And so you asked me, should it happen? So yes, if they cannot pass Build Back Better, they should absolutely... Because look, it's going to be very hard. It's already a huge loss that it's expired. So it's very hard to come back and go to the same well a second time. We already now have to do that because it's expired.
Yep.
But we are still in the same, obviously we're still in the same Congress. We're kind of in the same window. So, if they pass something in the next few months, they're still in a period where it seems reasonable to re-up the child tax credit. If we get out of 2022 and the child tax credit has not been renewed, yes, Democrats will run on it, say, elect a bunch more of us and we'll get it back. By the way, that doesn't look entirely likely at this point. Just being real. It's going to be very hard to bring this back. And as we said in the last episode, this is sort of the high water point to be advancing pro-family policies. The politics is not going to get much better for pro-family policies in the first place. So yes, I think they should, if they can't do Build Back Better, they should try and do the child tax credit. Now, the problem that they're going to have, though, is progressives are the left wing of the Democratic Party is going to find it, I think, very hard to accept that moderate Democrats and Republicans kept them from getting Build Back Better. And so it'll be a very does the progressive caucus, does Bernie withhold his vote to pass one or two pieces, significant pieces, but not, and that, unfortunately, that's a real possibility. You know how disappointed I was with I thought it was irrational and irresponsible to put the infrastructure bill at risk by threatening to withhold, when progressives threatened to withhold their vote on a policy they said they supported just as leverage. I think that soured much of the process, and I think it communicated a really awful thing to voters. But that suggests to me, like, they take a similar approach here. They'd be willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And with the child tax credit, that would be quite literal. Yeah, that would be very literal. And so, I think the child care policy in Build Back Better is in a much better place. They address the faith-based provider issue, so that's in a better place.
Yeah.
But you know me, I out of all the pro-family policies in Build Back Better, the child tax credit has been to me like the beacon, even with the problems it has. It's been the one piece that I think shines above the rest. There are other smaller pieces of Build Back Better. There's allowing the government to negotiate on prescription drug prices and that kind of thing, and that has widespread support. But the main pieces,
especially amongst the older generations.
Exactly. But I'd like to see child tax credit get passed if they can't do Build Back Better.
All right. Well, there we go. I think one of the last things that we wanted to talk about today was the Buffalo Bills.
The Buffalo Bills, we're heading into the playoffs, that's for sure. We have a game tomorrow, Sunday, against the Jets, where we'll, if we win the division, beat Belichick to win the division a second year in a row.
Yep.
And then it's the playoffs, baby. And it looks like, speaking of Belichick, looks like we'll face Belichick in the wild card round. That's what it looks like right now.
And hopefully at Highmark.
So this is the interesting question.
Okay.
So if we beat the Jets, we'll play home field. But remember, we lost against Belichick at the Highmark because the weather was insane.
Yeah.
And we beat him in New England. So, it's an interesting question. Although, then again, it's not like the weather in New England is likely to be any better.
We also tend to win at Highmark. We also tend to lose at, was it Gillette?
Yeah, Gillette.
Gillette, yeah. We tend to lose there. I think that...
Well, we tend to lose against Bill Belichick.
Well, I mean, the two are in a causal relationship.
True.
So, yes.
Deep correlation.
We're just looking at this in slightly different perspectives, but it's the same basket.
It'll be so heartbreaking. I mean, I guess we'll be able to talk about this next week and really wring our hands over it. But
I mean,
it'll be
the
very,
Buffalo
very
Bills'
sad.
life is constant wringing of hands.
It'll be very sad if we get kicked out of the playoffs at the hands of Bill Belichick. On the other hand, oh man, the tables that will be just destroyed if we beat Bill Belichick in the playoffs.
I know.
It'll be epic. But so I'm looking forward to this Jets game. Hopefully we'll beat them. Jets aren't great this year. Hopefully we'll beat them to end the regular season feeling good with a lot of momentum. And then it's playoff time, baby. I'm very excited.
I'm excited, too. I'm excited to order out pizza.
Yeah. We have a neighbor from Buffalo, too, who hangs out a Bills flag outside of her house during the playoffs. So, we feel very home here. Very at home here, and when we moved here, she sent us wings for the first Bills playoff game.
That was her
very
house.
Sweet.
Her housewarming gift to us was like a dozen wings. It was hilarious.
Yeah. And so
that's how you welcome somebody from Buffalo. Just in case you have any Buffalo people in your life and you don't know what to get them, unless they're vegetarian, just get them some wings.
And honestly, if they're from Buffalo,
even if they're vegetarian, they'll still say. Yes,
yeah, there's a wing exception to this. All right, next week I may be hooked on Girdle or Wordle.
Yes,
and we'll update on that. Thank you for listening. This has been Where is the Love? You can subscribe at reclaiminghope.substack.com. Thanks for being with us.
Bye.